Hello everyone, Pithy here, recording another episode of Pithy's Budget Brews. And today I'm going to be talking about Najeela the Blade Blossom. Now Najeela is a Warriors Matters card, which is one of the first legendaries that actually cares about Warriors, which is just really cool. So she's a 3 mana, 3/2. Whenever a warrior attacks, you may have its controller create a 1/1 white warrior creature token that's tapped and attacking. And if that ability wasn't good enough, she has another ability where you can play Wooburg, one of each color, untap all attacking creatures that gain trample, lifelink, and haste until end of turn. After this phase, there's an additional combat phase. Activate this only during combat. So, basically how she reads is she wants to be as aggressive as possible and really overwhelm people really quick, and to take as many combats as possible. So the deck is pretty much built around this, and to really be aggressive and to abuse her activated ability. So first off, we're starting off with the Warrior Synergy cards. One of the best cards in the whole deck is Labisa Koldize. 5 mana, 3/3. Each warrior creature gets +2/+2 in haste, because we don't have too many barbarians or berserkers, and they don't really matter. But she is like the super lord of the deck, and she is very scary when she hits the board once you have a whole bunch of warriors in play, especially with the Najeela. You just get 3/3 warriors each time your warriors attack, and it gets absurd. We have Bulwer Intimidator. This is a card you could probably take out because it's a bit expensive in mana cost, but it's such a fun card where you have cowards can't block warriors, and you can just pay 1 red, target creature becomes a coward until end of turn. And all your creatures are warriors, except for maybe 2, but they become warriors. I'll probably talk about them a little later. You pay 3 mana and creature becomes a warrior. So something you could also do is you could play like politics or something, and you can make one of their creatures a coward, and you can make someone else's creature a warrior so they can't block it, and do stuff like that, which is actually pretty fun. We have another one here, which is Bluncheon Rager, which is 2 mana, 2/2, so efficient bear creature. Whenever it attacks, each warrior you control gets Menace, which is super important for an aggro deck because this is basically evasion for this deck. And we go really wide really quick, so it is really important to be able to get in damage, and we're just basically getting in guaranteed damage with all of our creatures, because if they have to spend 2 creatures to block, or they spend 2 creatures to block 1 creature for every creature, it really is bad and doesn't soak up too much damage, but they have to block 2 creatures on our creatures, which is not really good for them. We have Mardu Woe Reaper, 1 mana, 2/1. Whenever it or another warrior enters the battlefield under your control, you may exile target creature card from a graveyard if you do gain 1 life. So this is just a passive graveyard hate card, which is something that's very important to have in Commander, to have graveyard hate. And this is just a good creature too. It's a 2/1 for 1 mana, which is already playable on its own. But then you tag in the whenever it enters or warrior enters, you get to exile a creature card from a graveyard, which is very good because reanimation is definitely very scary in Commander because there's plenty of good things to reanimate. So this is probably a weird one. Probably people won't see in most other decks, but this is Suki, I believe that's how you say it, son of Shishiro. 4 mana, 3/4. Other snakes you control get +1/+0, which is, I don't think any other snake except for 1, I think, in the deck. And whenever a warrior you control deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature at end of combat. So what it does is it basically turns all your warriors into basilisks, and if they hit something and at the end of combat it will die. So it also makes blocking really brutal, which is kind of the reason why it's in the deck, because if you want to block my 2/2, I'll kill whatever you got, and it's something that's definitely very scary to have to worry about your blockers and stuff. For your opponents, whenever you're attacking, they have to block, and they are most likely going to lose a creature if this is still in play. And not to mention, it's just not a bad body. It's a 3/4/4/4, so it's not like it's that bad. Um, Now we have Thrasher Brute, 4 mana, 4/3. Whenever Thrasher Brute or another warrior enters the battlefield under your control, or your team's control, target opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So this is another kind of like sweet combo card with Najeela, with just like gaining oodles and oodles of life and making your opponents lose a bunch of life. So it's a very powerful card for an uncommon. And this is just some of the Warrior Synergy cards because I couldn't stick them all on one page because there's so many of them. So you'll probably see some of them later on. Speaking of which, this is our token cards. We only have a few token creators because Najeela is our primary way to make large amounts of tokens. But we have Blaring Recruit, 4 mana, 2/2, has partner with Blaring Captain, which that is in the deck as well. And it has 2 and a white, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token. So this is something that's really good for like later in the game because it doesn't tap, so you can create, plenty of tokens with this card, and it's something that I think that is a very good thing to do because it's also a card that can kind of keep you back in the game after a board wipe, because board wipes really hose this deck because you are an aggro deck, so it's really rough. A Creature's Monument, 3 mana, white creatures you control, or white creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So we don't have that many white creatures as like what you would want for like a discount. What it's mainly there for is just the cast creature, create a token. And because it's a warrior token, it has a relevant creature type in this deck because our deck revolves around the warrior creature type. So that's the main purpose for it in the deck, is to really just swarm the board with warriors and then play some warrior like pump effects and stuff. Creatures of the True, 4 mana for a 3/6, double strike, indestructible. It can't attack unless you have 3 or more, or can't attack or block unless you have control 3 or more other creatures, or 3 other creatures. And as 4, create a white warrior, or 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. And the same reason for like the Blaring Recruit, it's the exact same reason for it. It just makes a token, and also it has a really good body. It is indestructible, has double strike, so like it's a good attacker or blocker if you can at least have at least 3 other creatures on the board. So it's something that's very good, and I think it's a really good card in Commander and in this deck for sure with the token synergies that or the warrior synergies it grants the tokens. Mardu's Strike Leader, 3 mana for a 3/2, and whenever it attacks, put a 2/1 black warrior creature token onto the battlefield. It has dash for 4, which dashes whenever you cast it. If you do, it gains haste, or whenever you cast it for its dash cost. If you do, it gains haste, and it returns to the battlefield at the end step. Next end step. So basically, this is just another way to like dump out large amounts of tokens, because every time it attacks, you create a token, and it just goes crazy like that. And something that's also kind of gives you, like, if you don't want to invest too many cards because you're scared of a board wipe, this is a good way to kind of keep yourself from going too far in on the board, because you can just dash it, and that way that you also have a threat after a board wipe, which is really good to have that. Now we have our card draw. So we have 2 ways that really care about us being warriors. So Raider Spoils, 4 mana, creatures you control get +1/+0, so it's a sort of an anthem. It's actually really good because we're an aggro deck. And then whenever a warrior you control deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 1 life if you do draw a card. So about all of our creatures are warriors or become warriors, so this is one of the better card draw spells in the deck for just like constant card draw. We also have Mind Blade Render, 2 mana, 1/3. Whenever your opponents are dealt combat damage, if any of that damage was dealt by a warrior, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. This is the weaker Raider Spoils, but this is also attached to a creature, so it's also something that's very good there. And just any card advantage you can get in an aggro deck is super important. We also have Distant Melody, 4 mana, choose a creature type, draw a card for each permanent you control of that type. So this can be a huge draw if you have a lot of warriors in play. It can be like draw 10, draw 12, it could be insane numbers of that. Or it could be draw 2. It's just kind of how it goes. It's a really high variance card because if you don't have a good board, it's not really that big of a draw. But I think honestly drawing at least like 4 or 5 cards is still worth it to play this. And then basically we have another Raider Spoils, except without the warrior text and the creatures get +1/+0, which is Bite Enough Thoughts. 4 mana, whenever a creature you control does combat damage to a player, you draw a card. And then has 2 tap, creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. So you can eliminate their blocking potentials, which is something that's also very key, is we don't want them to have blockers, or very many blockers. So Bite Enough Thoughts is just really good because you just draw a bunch of cards, and then you can probably finish the game off, or at least kill a player off with Bite Enough Thoughts, unless they because you can just leave your creatures back on your turn and then force them to attack, and then you can just wipe them out. And you can keep on doing that for your other opponents, which is something that's really good. Now we have our good warriors in our deck. Like, they do other things for us. There's just a couple of them. So we have Sirach, which is 5 mana, 6/6 flash, can't be countered. Creature spells you can't control, or you control can't be countered, and other creatures you control have trample. So this card has a wall of text on it, and basically what it is a protection card for our key warriors in our deck. So like all of our warrior synergy cards, are like Lavisa Cold Eyes. It's a good way to really protect it from being countered. Now they can remove it, yes, but it's definitely a good way for that. Also, giving them trample is something that's very relevant too, because we can pump them up really huge. This is just a huge beater on its own, and it's crazy just how good this card is. And it's just worth putting in this deck for sure. Ogre Battle Driver, 4 mana, 3/3. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, that creature gains +2/+0 and gains haste. So this is another combo card with Najeela. Whenever you attack with your warriors, you create the tokens. They get +2/+0, so they're 3/1s. So you're hitting in for a ton of damage, and it's ridiculous. Plus, this is also just good as another card that just pushes through damage, so you could just play a card, swing in, and do all this other stuff. It's a really good card, and it's very underrated in most decks, I think. I don't see it played that often, but I think it's very powerful, especially in this deck. Grand Warlord Rada, 4 mana for 3/4 haste. Whenever one or more creatures you control attacks, gain that much mana in any combination of red or green until on a turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So this is something that can allow you to play stuff post-combat, so you can keep on with the aggressive train, and you can keep playing stuff. But to note that you only get red and green mana on this, so if you have a bunch of black cards or something in hand, it's not really that great, because you're just basically swinging in for an extra 3 damage, and it's not really that great. But it's definitely good to really dump your hand out if you wanted to do that kind of strategy. Now we got Statement, Voice of Dissent, 5 mana, 3/4, flash, double strike, vigilance, haste, other creatures you control gain haste, pay white, tap, untap another target creature. So this card is kind of the same thing with like Sirach. It can be played at instant speed, so it's another good card to kind of protect against like board wipes, because you can just leave your mana open for this. Also, this can gobble up a lot of creatures if they try to attack you, which is something that's good. It also has a way to untap creatures, which is something that is good because you can like eliminate blockers, or you can eliminate attackers with them because you can untap something. So it kind of makes them where a bit scary to do that, or like reuse other like tap effects if you have those. And it's something just really good. The main reason it's in the deck though is because of haste, and we are an aggro deck. We want to go into the red zone pretty quick, pretty fast, and having haste is very important, and giving other creatures haste is good too. You know, Double Strike and Vigilance are just icing on the cake, and the untapping a creature is also good too. Now we have Den Protector, 2 mana, 2/1. Creatures with power less than Den Protector's power can't block it. And it has Megamorph, which is you can morph it for 3 mana, 3 generic mana. And then you can pay 1 and a green to morph it up, and it gets a counter on it. And whenever it's turned face up, return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So let's say you had a card like Ogre Battle Driver got killed. Let's say you want to just get it back. Well, here's one of your ways to do that. There's not too many ways to do that in this deck because there's not a lot of Warrior Synergy focused cards that can do that. But it's definitely something that's very good, very powerful, especially since it's basically unblockable if you can get your Anthem effects on the board and your Lord effects. It's basically an unblockable attacker, which is also pretty disgusting. Now we have our finishers. So, Kindred Charge, 6 mana, choose a creature type. For each creature you control of the chosen type, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So this is basically just a way to really pump out a lot of damage, because you can just double up a ton of your cards and just really just beat up on people. Because it's also something that's good too is it copies tokens as well. It doesn't just copy non-token creatures. As long as you've chosen the type Warrior, which I think everyone would be choosing Warrior with this deck. And it's a very underrated card, I think. It's a really good finisher card, but it's also really bad if you don't have enough creatures, which is what most of these are not really good at doing, is whenever you don't have very many creatures. It's not very good. And we have Jazal Goldmane, 4 mana, 4/4, first strike. You pay 3 white, attacking creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of attacking creatures. So this can be absurd, especially if you have Najeela, which just gives you a whole bunch of other attackers. You could do this, just decimate people with this card. It is very, very good, very strong, and it's attached to a 4/4 body for 4 mana, which is something that's insane, because it's just so good. Being able to pump massively and just eliminate people. Next up, Mirror Entity, which was from the last one as well. It's making another appearance in this deck. 3 mana, 1/1, changeling, pay X, and creatures you control become XX, and gain all creature types until end of turn. Basically just another kind of way to mass pump everything, because we do play small creatures, but we do play big ones as well, so it's kind of like you gotta find the medium there. And it's a very good card. I think it's just very good to have a creature that's all creature types, because it benefits from the other synergies in the deck. Like, this is, I believe, the only other snake in the deck, so it actually gets a +1/+0 from that, so it's just kind of funny. So it's pretty good there. Champion of Lampholt, 3 mana, 1/1, creatures with power less than Champion of Lampholt's power can't block creatures you control. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on this. So basically, this is another good card with Najeela, and a lot of these cards are good with Najeela. But like, if you attack with all your warriors, and you get, well, let's say you attack with 5 warriors. Well, you just put 5 counters on Champion of Lampholt. So that means creatures with power, let's see, they have to be creatures with power 6 or higher in order to block your creatures, which is something that's absolutely crazy to think about. That they have to have big creatures in order to block your stuff, and this is a definite removal target. Once it hits the board, people will become very scared, because it is a very monstrous card, and it can easily close out games super quick. Now we have specifically ways to go infinite with Najeela. So we have Cryptolitherite, 2 mana, creatures you control, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Then we have Druid's Repository, 3 mana, whenever creature you control attacks, put a charge counter onto its repository, remove a charge counter, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. And these 2 cards are just basically there just to work with Najeela. Now, Crippled Right does need to make sure that you have untapped creatures. So we have Herald of Tremoka and 2 other ways, I believe, to gain Vigilance. And we also have a few other Vigilance cards in the deck too. Which is he's a 2 mana, 2/2 Vigilance. Other warrior creatures you control have Vigilance. So basically, this is just ways to get infinite combat steps. There's only 2 of these. There's another one, but it was like super expensive, which is Phyrexian Altar, which you can sack your creatures to make mana of any one color or any color. So these cards are just there because maybe you just want to end the game. Boom, here you go. You got these, and should be pretty fun for your opponents to really just give more reason to hate your deck, is to take infinite combat steps. And that's pretty much it. There's a few fun cards in here in the deck, and like Figure of Destiny is in here, the Abzan one is in here too, because they seem like really just fun cards to play in the warrior deck, because they're not really warriors, but they, if you progress them in their stuff, their level basically, they become warriors. And now this deck is over the budget because of one reason, and that's Najeela is $12. So this is pretty, like crappy that I had to go over budget for this, but it's really hard to cut a card because your commander is worth so much money. But this deck is $107. It's actually not that bad for a deck, and it's something that I personally really love. It is an awesome deck, and it can definitely draw a bunch of cards, kill people really quick. And that will conclude this episode. I hope you liked the video, and there will be this deck tech, and there will be, or this will be this deck list, and the non-budget, which is about like $50 more, or roughly $50 more than this one. There's no improvements to the mana base in the non-budget one, because the Shocklands, which would be the replacement for some of these cards, from some of the lands, are still a bit too expensive, and the deck would be like about over $200. So this is a few creature changes, and a lot of the cards that I added in are really good, and worth spending the extra money if you really wanted to. So this ends the episode. I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you later.